Is John Pearson. I'm serving as the Floyd County Farm Bureau County President at the present time. I want to welcome each of you to tonight's Floyd County Supervisor Candidate Forum. The purpose of this forum is to allow voters to meet the candidates and learn about their vision, should they be elected to serve as our county supervisor member. Thanks to each of you for attending. The questions we'll be asking over the course of the forum were surfaced through our grassroots process from members across the county. Each of the candidates' names have been alphabetized to determine the order for answering each of these questions. Our timekeeper is Devin Murray tonight. He will raise the time card when there are 30 seconds left and will announce time when your response time is up. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an introductory statement. These will be in volunteer order. For the forum questions, these will be limited to 2 minutes and be conducted in rotating alphabetical order. We will conclude the forum with each candidate being provided 2 minutes for their closing statements. Our candidates for the supervisor positions, and please stand when I call your name, are Stuart Dalton, Doug Cam, Roy Schwickerath, and Mike Stout. Thank you for being here tonight. Let's begin the forum. Candidates, you are now welcome to start us off with your 2-minute opening statements in volunteer order.
Well, since I'm probably the least known of the four of us, my name is Stuart Dalton. I've been a resident here in Floyd County for 26 years. I was a chef, restaurant manager, everything from very fine restaurants to the place that claimed to be the only bar open in a college town after 2 a.m. So I've had quite a varied career in that. I have a BA in Human Services from Upper Iowa. I have been married for 33 years. I have 2 children, 1 granddaughter. And I'm interested in this job because while I worked in social services, I did that for close to 20 years. I have a special needs daughter on top of it. I thought I might be able to help with the upcoming problems we're going to have with the Medicaid issues in terms of social services. I'm familiar with the programs, I'm familiar with the funding sources, I'm familiar with how it operates. I know this is Farm Bureau, so I do have a limited farm background. My grandfather was a dairy farmer, had 80 acres in Marcellin Township, Columbia County, Wisconsin. My dad was a farmer and sold master mixed feeds for 32 years, including up in this area at one time. I worked for Jewel Egg Farms my first 2 years in college, paid my way through there. So I have some familiar with egg production of 45 years ago. I think that the one thing we do need to look for here, at least in agricultural centers, is that we have some of the finest land in the world, and we need to protect that. We have water that we need to protect, and we need land, and then we have air that we protect. And I think some areas, like the master matrix with the CAFO, for CAFO, that maybe they need some tweaking, adding, subtracting, whatever we need to do for some new technologies that we have now. So, well, thank you, and I hope to receive your vote this year.
I'm Doug Cam. I'm presently a supervisor. This would be the end of my second term. I'm running for my third. I pretty much grew up here in Charles City. Is that better? All right. My parents lived in Omaha, Lincoln. I was born in Des Moines, and they came up here when I was about 3, left for a little bit, came back. So anyway, most of my life I've been here. My grandparents, on my dad's side were in Rudd, and my grandparents on my mother's side were south of Charles City, and they still own that farm today. They don't live there anymore, but they still own it. I have I've been in business, in the excavating business. We're trying to be in that business right now. It's pretty trying. For 40 some years. I've been married for 40 some years. We have 2 children. Eric is an engineer, lives in Muscatine, and he's married to an engineer, and they have 2 children, Evan and Claire. The youngest son, Kalen, lives in Ankeny now. He works for Microsoft as an IT person, and they have 1 son, Lucas, who was here to see us this weekend. Anyway, we have a lot of fun with them. And again, I found being a supervisor it's pretty satisfying most days. Some days it's pretty trying, but other days not so much. So anyway, I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Royce McGrath, and I look out and I see a lot of familiar faces. First thing I'd like to do is thank the Farm Bureau for having this tonight so that everybody gets a chance to hear us and listen to all 4 of the candidates. Also like to thank all of you for coming tonight. It's a beautiful night, and I'm glad that you took the time out to come listen to us. My wife, Deb, is in the audience. She's a teacher in Clarksville. We have 3 married children, 6 grandchildren, which, like Doug, we love our grandchildren. We should be grandparents first, not last, I think, which most grandparents will agree with, I believe. I grew up here in Floyd County. My parents moved here. I was 7 years old. We moved from a farm over by the North Washington corner, actually, over in Chickasaw County, which is where I was born. I spent 32 years with the fire service in Charles City, 6 years as a volunteer, 26 years as full-time. The last 14 years as the fire chief, which I learned a lot of things through that career, but the fire chief's position really gave me that experience to know how to make decisions, how to deal with people, and it really gave me that background that I think was very important for doing this job. I was a county supervisor for 4 years, defeated a couple years ago. I learned a lot in the beginning. As a supervisor, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made and a lot of things that people have to know. So I served on a lot of boards and commissions, represented all of you, and I was the chair of the original jail committee. So I think I bring a lot back to the board. So I hope that I get as much support as possible.
Hello, my name is Mike Stout. Married to my wife Stacy, got 4 children. One's in Washington, D.C. working for Congressman Young. I got a senior at Iowa State studying ag business. I got a sophomore at NIAC studying elementary ed. And then I got a senior in high school, so about done with the high school years. My background is I served on the Farmers Co-op board for about 16 years, and the reason I say about 16 is I was on Farmers Co-op, and then when we merged, I was the chair of that board, which merged into Via Field, and I served a few more years there. I served on the Roseville Parish Council, and I'm currently a board member of the RMR School Board. I guess I've been on a lot of boards, and that's part of the reason I'm running as supervisor. Just want to make sure, the county, I want to be here to represent you. I always feel that's what board members do, is represent their constituents. So thank you.
Thank you for your statements. We will now move to the member questions. Question 1, and we'll start off with Stuart. How do you perceive the state of the economy of Floyd County, and how can we make it better?
Can you hear me? Okay. It's better than when I moved here. I moved here in '92. Immediately after I moved here, you had the tractor factory shut down. You hit with a flood in '93. It was a bad time. We have, through the community development and much work that with the boards in the past, brought in new industries or have improved new industries and allowed improvements, such as the add-on that they have for the chemical plants or the pharmaceutical plants. Farms are, as most times, are having tough times and good times. Right now you're having tough times. I saw that beans went down considerably this afternoon, and so did corn. And part of that may be due with the tariffs and the trade wars we're going to be going into. I think the best thing we do with our communities in terms of business is to invite more industry in, encourage our farmers, find maybe some relief in tax, especially property taxes. I don't know where else we get the money right now, so that may be a difficult one. I think we're making headway on it. I think in a few years, I think we're going to see a lot more headway. So I think things look good for right now. We just have to keep doing what we're doing. So, and I forgot to thank the Farm Bureau. I think people coming out here, and my wife, I see, came. She's over in the corner there for 2 years. So, thank you.
Doug, you're next.
Well, being in business as long as I have, there's certainly been some swings up, swings down. Right now, it's booming. And as a businessman, I can tell you, and it's the same problem everybody else has, it's finding labor, finding employees. And I think across the board, I can see Devin nodding his head. Across the board, Salisbury, Cambrix, Kroll, Ready Mix, you name it, we're all looking for employees. So the way that I've always looked at that, the way to help that, we gotta make this the most attractive place in the world to live. And we have
we can't hear you.
we have to offer something to everybody, whether it be conservation, whether it be education. And one of the biggest messages we need to pass on to our young kids is not everybody has to go to college. It's a great place to live.
Roy?
Yeah, I agree that the economy in Floyd County seems pretty solid these days. And we're seeing things on the national level that are definitely affecting the farm community. And I hope it doesn't end up being a downside for us in the end. That's a real problem. But the other thing that, as a supervisor, we can support the farm community and make sure we have good roads and we have a good place for business so that you can market your produce. That's very important. But the other thing that's important, and Doug hit the nail on the head, is having people here that want to work, and that's a hard thing to do. Part of that is making sure that we have a community that has good air, good water quality, and it's got to be, we have to have good schools. And whatever the supervisors can do to promote those things is a positive. And that's why, I feel like I really believe in those things, and I really think that we need to promote a good quality of life. We have to have a good place to live. We have to have good recreation so that we attract those people. And again, we have to have that business so that our young people do want to stay here. And yes, they do not all have to go to college, but if they decide to go to college, we want to make sure we have some industries here that they can work in. So, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with these three. The financial state of the county, I think, is pretty fair. As you know, maybe you don't know, but I've farmed all my life, and you look at the markets, and you look at the hog prices, and you look at the commodity, all the commodities. Things are tough right now for the farmers in that aspect, and farmers are tightening their budgets and taking care of business. And as a board member on the co-op, as a chair, I was always big on budgets. You make a budget, you follow the budget, you try to do whatever you can to stay within the lines of the budget. I know sometimes you have to make changes, but I think going forward, we got to bring industries, new industries to bring new jobs. We want to keep the young people around. We want to attract young people. We want to attract families to Floyd County. I think the way to do that is to try to bring industry to Floyd County. And, I think being a supervisor, it's a learning curve. The boards I have been on, it takes you a little time to understand what's going on. And do I know how to bring industry into town? I'm not sure, but I think the other thing is we support our businesses and our industries that are already in Floyd County, and I think that's how we keep our county financially sound.
Now we'll go to question number 2, and we'll start off with Doug. How do you intend to connect with constituents across the county?
Well, I think I have a pretty unique way of doing that. Number one, I'm in business and I travel this county. I'm probably one of the very few people that's ever been in almost every single section of Floyd County. I do a lot of work for Mid-America, the windmills and what have you. So I get out there and travel quite a bit. And I guess anybody would tell you, my wife would tell you I like to talk, and so if I see you, I'm probably gonna come up and talk to you. That's the best way. My cell phone, I think it's open all the time, 24/7, email. There's hundreds of ways to get a hold of a supervisor. Phone calls are usually the best.
Roy?
Yeah, during my 4 years as supervisor, I was always available, but if you look, like for instance, my card that I printed out for handing out to people is very simple, but at the very bottom of it, it has my email address on, my home phone number, and my cell phone number. And those have always been available to all of the public. You know, at one time I thought that going and having listening posts was the way to do that. And unfortunately, I tried that a little bit as a supervisor, but people just don't come and listen to that. I think going and finding out where people are meeting and where you can go and meet with them is probably the best thing, rather than trying to create a place that they come to. But again, if I can do anything, it's to make sure that everybody understands, whether it's me or one of the other supervisors, you need to come and ask us if you've got a question. And hopefully we listen, and I absolutely will listen. But that's the best thing to do, is contact the supervisor if you have any questions.
Mike?
I think the best way probably to communicate with you is be active in the community. Go to the things for church, go to the things for the school, go to the ball games. Never be, if I'm a supervisor or any other time you got questions, if you got something you want to ask me. I mean, I'm always available. I've always said that on other boards. My phone number, I can give it to you anytime, or email. Like I said, just interacting with you guys, with the people of Floyd County, I think is the best way to have good communication.
When I was in social services, I was on 24-hour call. I was supposed to have my phone within arm reach, and I did that for a long time. I will do it again when I'm on the board. Now I do screen my calls, but I'll wait till it goes through voicemail sometimes. But I always got back to them one way or another. I think the best way, my opponent down here, Mike, said that it's best to be active in your community. I've been on the Arts Council for 11 years. I've been a member of the Floyd County Democratic Party for 20 years. I've been in all sorts of positions on that. For a short period of time, I was the second largest employer in Norris Springs when I worked for Liberty Square. And, but I think my best method right now is go door to door, regardless with political persuasion. I go there, I go next door. I go to the door after that, assuming that it's, you can tell if it's occupied or not. I'll make myself known, I'll answer their questions, I'll work very hard, and it's going to be a learning curve. I've been sitting in on the board meetings since March when I retired. And there's a lot that people don't realize what they do in this job, and I'm beginning to appreciate that. So I think the best thing to do is be available, be active, make myself known, answer your questions, and probably the best thing you can do is just do your job, and they'll learn. So, thank you.
Question number 3, and we'll start with Roy. How do you plan to ensure the new law enforcement center bond project remains in budget?
Well, we passed as a citizens of Floyd County, we passed a $13.5 million bond issue. And as far as I'm concerned, that is all the money, and actually, my wife and I have this discussion quite often, and we say that if we don't have to spend $13.5 million, we shouldn't. But the way for that to happen is for specifically the Board of Supervisors to keep an eye on that project and every aspect of that project. We want a project that's going to last us for the next 50 years, and we don't want a Cadillac. We want what's sufficient to do the job. I've got a background with the fire service. I was in charge of building inspection in Charles City. And through that, I dealt with architects, engineers, project managers. I understand blueprints very well. I know how to read them. I know how to look for the right things, the wrong things. And so I think I bring a real unique quality to this position at this point in time. I was involved at the very beginning when we started looking at, did we need a new jail? Could we partner with the city of Charles City? What do we do next? And so I think I really bring a unique aspect to that spot. And again, like I said, it's watching that budget, making sure that somebody doesn't say, well, let's put gold faucets in because they look pretty. Let's see what our life expectancy of those are, and is that what we really need? So I think that's very important, and I think I'm the person to do that. Thank you.
I have been sitting in on a few supervisors meetings, and I think if I understand, I think they put a committee together that would be a little more hands-on and oversee the project. And staying in budget, I did ask a question, did you figure in the overage? When you build something or you try to improve something, you always have 10, 20% overage. It just seems like you always go over budget. And it sounds like they've already figured that in, so that's a good thing for the supervisors that have done that. I really feel like if they want to stay on budget, they just need to, keep on top of things, keep on top of the architects and the builders and everybody doing their work and making sure things stay on budget. I just think it's a hands-on project to stay on budget.
Well, I agree with all three here. It's a hands-on deal. You need to, every time the budget comes in, whenever time expense goes out, you need to go over it and see if there's any waste, if there's an unnecessary purchase. Why is it this is maybe not following budget? If it is, that's good. If it's not, what can we do to bring it back down? The present board, it does have a committee on overseeing it right now, a special committee on it. They are being very transparent on the costs and what's going to be, how the building's going to be built. And that's the other key. We need to be transparent to it. We need to let the public know how much this is running, what's going, how fast are we going with it, where is it being spent? Is it under budget, over budget there? Are we meeting the standards that we need to be? It doesn't need to be Cadillac, but a nice Ford Taurus would be nice. It's just oversight, transparency, and keeping within the plan.
There really is only one way to keep it in budget, and that is just keep your eye on it all the time, right to the very end. There's a lot of different ways that will proceed with that project. Number one, if you stop and think of the courthouse today, it was built in the 40s. So it's a 67-year-old building that really hasn't had much of anything except some really good maintenance. The building itself, the bones are in really good shape. There are things that when you look at that and you realize it was built in the 40s, obviously we don't have very much parking, but everybody was driving a Model T. You don't have 4-door pickups that are 30 feet long and all at once. So there's a need for more of that. And there's ways to adjust those costs. the architects, the engineers will put alternates together in those bids, and you'll pick and choose at bid time. And as it goes through, what you can add and what you can't add, but government buildings are built to be utilitarian, I think that's right. They serve a purpose, but they're not fancy. And I think that's what we're looking for in Floyd County. We want it to last for a long time, another 40, 50, 60 years, hopefully. And we'll get there by just keeping an eye on it.
Okay, we'll move on to question 4. Weather was certainly a factor for communities across our county this year. Many roads now suffer washouts or other damage from heavy rains. How will you keep road and bridge projects on schedule and within budget while attending to other issues that have arisen from seasonal weather? And we'll start off with Mike.
Well, that's a tough one. Like you said, it's been a tough summer, and just as a resident of Floyd County, you see these roads wash out, they fix them. A week later, they wash out again. I was actually looking at some numbers, and it seems like about a third of the budget for Floyd County is spent on roads and bridges, and that's a big portion of the budget. And I think they got a real good guy in the position to manage that, as Dusty Rolando was the engineer. I also see him at these meetings, and he comes there, he comes prepared, he talks with supervisors, they talk back and forth. He gives them update on projects and where they're at. And I think that's the big part of it, as far as having the money to spend, keeping on budget. The second part to that question, if a big job arises, I guess, for instance, T38, I think that was proposed to be done next year. Well, they had to push that back because they don't have the funding. So, things have to get changed as needed. Like I said, I think a third of the budget, I'm not sure because I'm not there, but I think about a third of the budget is spent on roads and bridges. So that's a big portion of the budget. So yeah, just have a good guy in place. The supervisors got to oversee that because that's their job. I guess that would be my opinion there.
Stuart?
It is a big job, and I agree. Dusty Ronaldo is doing an excellent job in his position. But we need to also budget. We need to plan ahead. I don't think this rain is going to be a fluke. I think rain levels have been going up year after year, and then maybe just a sec will go down eventually. But right now, we need to plan on more water, more flood. I think the way to pay for it is, of course, good budgeting, and I think we're not. We haven't been afraid of asking from the federal and the state governments in order to help pay for this. This is a very important thing. We're a rural committee, and we depend on our farm to market roads, we depend on our side roads to get off the field. It's something that has to be done, and it's rightly so a large part of our budget. There may be some technological aspects that we can go into in providing some drainage, better drainage, better road structure, runoffs, wetlands, any number of things we could be doing to retain the moisture and prevent it from washing out the roads. But initially, it's just budget. Transparency, we got to be careful with not to be afraid of to call the federal government. We should be afraid to call the state government and tell them, hey, listen, we have a situation down here, we need help. So, thank you.
If you were listening to any of our supervisor meetings recently, Dusty presented us with our yearly report, and in there, some of the numbers will just shock you. We spent the last fiscal year, $1.4 million on rock. About 300,000 of that was for repair, and it looks like he's going to be able to recover some of that through FEMA. As far as keeping things on track and on budget, we don't have enough cash money in things to have a lot of projects. One or two, there's one big bridge going this year, which is, we call it Frankie's Bridge, up north, south and east of Cowell. There's a couple of other smaller ones, but we're never gonna have enough contract bridges. Some of those come through farm to market, some of those come through. And the thing you wanna remember is any contractor in the world doesn't make any money by dragging that project out. The secondary road department does a lot of what we call day labor projects, which are replacing culverts, kind of maintenance culvert kind of thing. But they're at the mercy of the weather. Whenever we get washouts, we've had a backhoe down there for weeks on end, just bringing gravel back up out of the road ditches, spreading it back on the road. So when you drive down a secondary road and you notice there's sod and grass in the road, it came from the ditch. And that's to try to recover some of that stuff. So you're really just trying to do whatever you can to be efficient with our operations.
Well, I think everybody pretty much hit the nail on the head. Dusty Rolando is an important part of this picture. If you look at, and I learned this through that first term as a supervisor, but the secondary road budget is truly a separate budget from the general fund or the rural services fund. Now, they both put money into that secondary roads fund, but it has its own balances, and so it functions separate from a lot of the rest of the budgets within the county. And again, that's, like I said, that was an eye-opener for me as a supervisor. The other thing that happened a couple years ago was the state passed a 10-cent gas tax, which they shared with cities, counties. They also took their share of it, of course. But we've done a lot in Floyd County with that gas tax. And this bridge that Doug mentioned was Frankie's Bridge. It's the one up by Caldwell. It actually went out of service while I was a supervisor. And we talked about the fact that one of the ways that bridge would get replaced would be with that gas tax. And I think that has been part of that. From what I've been reading, I followed that a little bit. But again, to maintain our roads, we have to put our faith in our people, whether it's Dusty or his road workers. They do a lot of good work. They do a lot of those day labor projects that saves us a lot of money in the long run. And that's very important. But again, like I said, that's putting faith in our people and letting them do their jobs.
Question number 5. How would you choose to allocate local option sales tax when it comes up for election next? How would you choose to allocate local option sales tax when it comes up for election next? And we'll start with Stuart.
Well, we need to split it to where we need it, and that's something that needs to be decided. Of course, it needs to be split between the various government entities that it covers. It needs to maybe used for roads. It can be used for other infrastructure. It can be used for paying down bills. It can be brought for bringing in industry. I think what they need to do is they need to sit down in committee to figure out what priorities are that need to be dealt with. I don't think that's been decided yet. Personally, I would sooner see infrastructure and education. Social services should be in there. There's many ways to split it up, and that's where we need to sit down as a group with community insight and action with it. Combination of the various city councils, townships, board of supervisors, and decide how we're going to divvy this up. I think be the most fair and equitable way of doing it. So go by need first.
I think history has shown us that when you have the vote for the local option sales tax, if you don't have a specific purpose, and in the past it's been for roads, very seldom do they pass. And that local option sales tax has been used for bridges, roads, and secondary road repair. I'm not sure, I would have to check on that, but I think we had an episode where it passed in the city, but it didn't pass in the county, and then it went back out for a revote, and then when it was put as secondary roads, then it did pass in the county, and Dusty was really concerned that was going to be about a $500,000 hit to his budget, which is a pretty major thing. So it probably is going to have to go that same way with a specific target.
Yeah, I believe Doug is right, that the secondary roads is where we're using it today, if I remember correctly. And the problem is, if we don't use it for that again, we were just talking about it in the previous question, is how are we gonna budget our secondary roads? How are we gonna take care of those gravel roads and those bridges? And so if other ideas come up, then we also have to sit down and say, okay, what does that mean to our road funds? And so I think there's going to be a lot of discussion that's going to have to happen between now and then, and correctly so. We have to determine what the citizens want, and that's going to be part of listening to you people out there and seeing what your desire is, because you're the ones essentially that are going to be in charge of how that fund happens. So, thank you.
Yeah, I guess I agree with these guys. That's what the money's been going for currently. We just talked about last question that how much money is spent on roads. It seems like that's the obvious choice, but I think, if I was elected, it'd be new to me, so it'd be something I'd have to learn from the previous supervisors or the current supervisors. And you just got to have a good cohesive group of supervisors to make those decisions. Yeah, right now it looks like roads, that's where it should go. But who knows what could happen down the road, and you might have to allocate it somewhere else. I mean, I think that's the three supervisors working well together and making a plan and following through.
We're to question 6 already. And question 6 asks, what strengths do you bring to the table that would lend well to participation on boards and committees related to responsibilities outside the boardroom? And we'll start off with Roy.
Thank you. Well, as you know, I served for 4 years as a county supervisor. And I served on my fair share of boards and commissions. And I will say this, with my peers across the North Iowa area especially, I was looked at as a leader amongst those. To give you an example, on the County Social Services Board, which is a 22-member board, if I'd been successful and gotten reelected, I was going to be serving as the president of that board at that time. And so that just gives you an example on how my peers have looked at me as a leader within all the counties in North Iowa. I feel like the boards I served on, I really enjoyed serving on. I'd say 90–95% of them at least. There was a couple that I never did understand, and I think that goes for other supervisors that have served on those boards as well. But I had a real passion for the boards I served on. I served on the Foster Grandparent Board, which I really believed in. I thought it was a great board. I made all the meetings, and I don't know that I missed more than about 1 or 2 because of notifications, actually. But I really had a passion for that. I served on the NIVIC Board, which is a board out of Mason City that creates job opportunities for people with disabilities and handicaps. And I feel like I was a real positive impact on that board. I think I represented the people of Floyd County very well on all the boards that I served on. I was looked at highly as an important part of those boards and looked for my opinion. So,
I didn't give my age when I started, but I'm 47. I've been on boards since, I've been on boards 20 years. I know it seems like a lot for a 47-year-old, but my first experience was a co-op board. I served on that, and then eventually I got a little different opinion of board presidents and chairs. My opinion is the board chair runs the meeting. He's not no more important than the next board member. They're all equal, and that's how I've always, when I ran the board for Farmers Co-op, that's how I did it. You know, I told the guys right up front, my vote doesn't mean any more than your vote. So I just think the three supervisors work together and have to work together well. So I guess my strength is I like to think things through. I don't like to make knee-jerk reactions. If I need to get more information, let's take some time to get more information. You know, don't just make a decision based on first blush of what you see. Get all the facts, get the facts straight, and then make your decision. Thank you.
Well, I sat on the old county social work, Bob Lincoln's department here. Actually, we had the county systems. I sat on that for about 14 years as a parent of a disabled adult. I'm familiar with much of the other social services. We've had, in my line of work, I've dealt with foster grandparents, I've dealt with transportation purposes for disabled adults. There are some areas where I'm going to have to learn. I'm going to have to pay attention. For example, zoning would be a difficult one for me, but I think I can learn it. I think the one thing is I'm willing to learn. I hope I'm a quick learner, and I think we'll provide some expertise in some of these areas that I've worked in. As for the Board of Supervisors, I agree. We're one of three, and I think we need to express our opinions and not necessarily agree with everything being said, but we certainly need to work together and try to come up, if we have to, with a compromise, or at least come up with a clear answer. I think my abilities on communication with willing to look into things, to try something new, I think that might be an advantage too in many of these boards. So, like I said, some of them I'm going to have to learn a little more on, some of them I think I have some expertise on.
Well, one of my qualities, and I'm sure my mother will tell you, I probably got 3s on my report card because I talk too much, but I do like to make friends with the people. As a supervisor, that is one thing that you get to serve on a variety of boards, a lot of different ones. I'm also the kind of person, I want to do my research, I want to know what I'm talking about when I get there, and I'll listen and very often add something to the thing, but I want to know what I'm doing when I get there.
We have 2 questions left. Question 7. How do you perceive agriculture's importance to the county, and what can you do to support it during your term? We'll start with Mike.
Well, I believe it's a huge part of Floyd County. You know, ag is obviously a huge part. It's, if I remember, I think 1 in 4 jobs in Floyd County is ag related. Maybe it's more than that even, but to support it, you know, we got to support our local businesses, our local implement dealers, our local co-ops. You know, I think we got to do those things. As far as the supervisors, how are we going to help the ag industry? I guess in 2 minutes, I might have to think a little longer, but I'm not sure the answer to that. That's a question I'd have to think about. But obviously, ag is a huge part of Floyd County. But with that being said, you don't forget about the cities and the small towns. We've got to take care of that too. So I guess I don't have a real great answer for that one. I just would have to think that through a little bit more.
It is extremely important for Floyd County, as for the state and for the nation and for the world. I mean, it's 2 out of the 3 basics of life: food, shelter, and water. What we can do to maintain and support it here in Floyd County, again, would be good government. We need to bring more business in. We need to not be too onerous with rules and regulations. We need to maybe adopt new technologies. We need to maybe think different ways of farming, different crops possibly. Many times I've heard, especially from the politicians coming through here, that there's got to be something different than losing money on corn. I don't know if you are or not. That's just what I've heard. I think maybe a expansion of it. Where I come from up in Wisconsin, I mean, there's it's very versatile. Of course, there's a lot of dairy. Of course, you have cash crops, and you have a lot of vegetables that we would call up there muck farming because it's in the mud. Maybe look at fiber growth of certain plants, maybe some specialty crops in this area. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we do to encourage and keep the farm community viable. So I think it just needs some imagination, some looking into it, organization, and I think a good government structure in order to maintain it.
It pretty much goes without saying, we all know that agriculture is the backbone of Charles City, Floyd County, and has been forever, and will continue for a long time. And the best thing that supervisors can do, we are reactionary, we try to, these situations come along and you try to do everything you can to help whatever happens, and we know how fast the world changes. But the other thing we also have to do is we have to be fair to every citizen, whether you're a farmer, whether you're a citizen of a city. So we want to be ready to help anybody or any situation that comes along.
Yeah, Floyd County is an ag community, and we truly are a community. That's what our background is. That's what our future lies in. The supervisors have some input in this, but they're not what's going to make agriculture survive in Floyd County. You people out there are what's going to make it survive. And you've done an excellent job over the last generations of changing when change needs to happen. And believe me, when I hear people talk about a tractor going out in the field without anybody in it, that'll be a change. But it's coming. And we as the supervisors just need to figure out how to be good partners in that with the farmers of Floyd County. And whether it's the farmers or not, it's the whole ag community. And our industry is the same way. We've got a lot of ag-related industries. We brought up earlier about roads. We have to make sure we have good roads, but we may have to adjust how those roads are used in the future as we see more mechanization happen within the county area. And we have to be open to new ideas. But again, the supervisors are not going to make ag survive in Floyd County. It's going to be the people.
Now we'll go to our last question, question 8. As I'm sure you are aware, livestock generates $95.8 million in sales and employs 531 people in Floyd County. What are your thoughts on growth of livestock in Floyd County? And we'll start with Stewart.
Well, our methods that we use are, I'm not going to put down by no means. I mean, we're feeding the world in the methods that we're using with the large animal farms that we had. I worked on a large animal farm. The egg farm was for Jewel Foods out of Chicago. We had 500,000 birds at one and 1 million at another. There are things that can be done to alleviate some of the problems they have. Some are just common sense things. Some others are maybe some better technologies. Some are maybe something we haven't even thought of yet. So I think what we can do to support it is what we're doing. I think I have nothing against, like I said, I like pork, I like beef. I was a chef, made my living off of it for many years. But we also have to remember that large amount of animals produces a large amount of effluents there that we have to deal with. It can't be put into the waters, we can't leave it in the soil. It causes odor. I think we need to find better, and maybe, well, like I say, tweaking the master matrix a little bit, maybe finding some new technologies. I don't know about all we have to do on it. I think it's a problem we have to address and we need to look into. So.
It's, again, pretty obvious when you come out here to the Floyd County Fair and you see all the animals and the varieties. And my wife and I come out here, we've grown up in Charles City, Floyd County, and a lot of the names you don't even recognize. And they have all kinds of animals out here. But on the other hand, as a supervisor, there's no more contentious subject than CAFOs. And, you know, I'm a believer in conservation. I worry about our water quality. Here in Northeast Iowa, we have some unique water qualities that you don't have to travel very far in Iowa. Even Butler County has some rural water. My son has in-laws down in southwest Iowa, and their water issues are different. They drill 800-foot wells for their hog houses. They have piped in water for their houses. I don't want us to get to the point where we're taking our water for granted, that it's always going to be here and always be good. The best advice for the CAFOs, I said this during some of our meetings, there are some people that say we want local control. I said if you had local control, you would never ever build another CAFO again. I think there's room for CAFOs. We're all citizens. We all should be able to make a living. The only thing we would ask is that everybody just be a good neighbor to each other. That's really where it comes from.
Yeah, livestock is sort of the basis for what we all saw as we grew up, or most of us saw. Most of us had hogs and cattle and chickens, either on our folks' farms, our grandparents' farms. We all saw that. The truth of the matter is, we're probably not going to go back to that. We've got a lot of farmers that have put a lot of money into equipment to do grain farming, large grain farming, and we're going to see that continue. And Doug's right, the CAFOs, the confined animals, structures, we need to look at that master matrix. And the only way we get to look at that is through the State House at this point. And so I think that on a local level, we need to go down to that State House and get them to look at that particular issue. It was put in place by actually one of the supervisors currently seated, Mark Hewitt was a legislator at the time, and helped write that. And it needs to be relooked at. But the thing that everybody needs to understand is we are a farming community, we're an ag community, we're going to have livestock, we want livestock. I'm a meat eater, I love red meat, and I do not want to get rid of that. So we have to figure out how to do that. And Doug's right, our water quality, you know, we talk about our streams and our aquifers. Maybe we're sending it downstream, but we still want it to be good quality for the state of Iowa, because we're all Iowans. And so I think the big thing is to work with the state of Iowa. We've got good producers out there. We need to look at what those good producers are doing, and we need to use those as examples to write some good laws.
Yeah, livestock plays an important role in Floyd County, in Iowa, and the nation. I mean, I remember raising pigs with my dad and my brother, and we had 300 head out in this big cattle shed. Well, now we got to raise a lot more pork, a lot more beef, a lot more poultry. We got to raise food because you know, the population is growing. We got to raise that. CAFOs is a hot topic. Actually, I have a few. I have 3 with my brother. We built our first one in '96, and it was a great decision because I was 25 years old. I want to get into farming. You got to diversify. You know, there wasn't room for me to grain farm, just strictly grain farms. We had to diversify. I think as long as you follow the DNR regulations, I mean, they make regulations, they make setbacks, they make manure. You got to follow the manure plan. You know, when you put up a new building, you put a tile perimeter around it, you have a test well. So if you have contamination, you can test it, you can make the proper fixes then. There's not a person, I think, in here that doesn't care about water quality. Every citizen needs to care about it, and I think the farmers do what they can to protect that. I don't think they're out there trying to contaminate water. I know that for a fact. I mean, everybody has to be concerned and care, and everybody does care about water quality. Like I said, some of these guys said, we got responsible growers, and that we do. You follow the DNR regulations, and I just don't think it's a county level jurisdiction. I think it needs to stay at the state level. You know, the DNR has these setbacks and these regulations in place, and as long as the farmers follow them, you know, hog confinements, dairy confinements, cattle confinements, all of those are a good thing to feed the world. Thank you.
At this time, we will have the closing statements from each candidate. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for their closing statement in whatever order you desire. Who would like to start?
Well, I'm going to start because I'm going to get this over with. Anyhow, I'd like to thank Floyd County again, and the Floyd County Farm Bureau, and all of you people for attending tonight. That is the only way that we get to talk to a large group. We can knock on doors, we can individually be heard, but I thank you for that. I feel like I bring a lot of experience to this position. If people look at my background, they're going to see that from being a supervisor, from being the fire chief in Charles City. I want to tell you a little quick thing that happened to me just this last week. I was talking to a young man out here knocking on doors, and he asked me a lot of questions. You know, some people, I knock on the door and they go, thank you, and that's it. This young man, he took time and he wanted to ask questions, and I always take time. And he asked me a lot of questions, and after we got done, he says, you know, you skirted around a few of the answers. But he said, you know what you did? You listened. And he said, you got my vote. And he said, that's one thing that not all county supervisors do. He says they don't listen. So I guess my goal is that I want to listen to every one of you if you've got a concern, and whether it's county level, state level, federal level, because we talked about a lot of things that day, but I really want to be a good listener, and I feel like I am. So with that, I do need your vote on November 6th so I can represent you. Thank you.
Yeah, first I want to thank the Farm Bureau for putting on this event. I was a little nervous, I'm not going to lie. I'm not the best speaker in front of in public, so I hope I do it okay. I did jot down some goals. You know, I was thinking about coming here today. You know, my goals are, you know, water quality, to be financially sound, you know, keep the county financially sound, create new jobs, bring industry to Floyd County, and of course, always listen to you. That's what we're here for. We're here to serve you. If you got a concern, a question, a comment, my door would always be open, my phone would always be on. That's what we're here for. And if I was elected, that's what we'd be here for. And I just want to thank all of you for coming out tonight.
Thank you again to the Farm Bureau, and thanks to the audience for coming to listen to us. And like Mike down the end here, I was a little nervous too. I'm normally behind the reporters, way in the back serving the food. So this is a new experience for me. I think I can offer much. Like I said, I've had long-term in social services, which is one of our biggest expenses in this county. I've been doing door-to-door, and again, I've heard the same thing. You listened, and I did listen. It was part of my job. You had to listen. And I make myself available, but I'm not iron-bound to certain things. If you can give me a good argument on why it should be done differently, I'll probably go along with it. I'm willing to negotiate if it's negotiable. I'm looking at new ideas. I'll stick with the old ones that work. I'm hoping to provide maybe a little fresh blood, for lack of a better word here. Maybe it's not the proper form to put it. But what I want to offer is my long experience. I've worked with, like I said, I had farming. I've worked in business with running restaurants. I worked in social services. I've got a wide varied experience in various different aspects of life, and I would like to provide it to the county of Floyd. I would like your vote on November 6th. I would hope for your support, and if there's any suggestions you guys need to have me bring up or consider before the elections, please let me know. So, thank you.
And again, same story, would like to thank everybody for coming out and listening to these guys up here. I'll be the first one to tell you that there's a learning curve, and I can see Warren, I can see Leo, I can see Roy, I can see Linda, and they'll tell you that there's a learning curve. And the first couple of years at this, your head just rolls, your eyes just roll in your head. It is a unique job, and when we talk about listening, as a matter of fact, I had a guy in my office today, and he ranted and raved, for lack of a better word, for quite a while, and he says, well, I know that nobody's going to do anything, but I just wanted somebody to listen to what I was going to say. He says, well, I'll pass the information on, and I'll be the first one to tell you I don't have all the answers, but like I said, I like to do research, and I'll go figure them out, and I'll get back with you when I find the guy or gal who does know that answer. So, again, I went through a lot of soul searching. This is my second term, and I decided that I still have fresh ideas and still enjoy it. So I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
How about a round of applause for all of our candidates? To the candidates, I want to thank each of you for participating in the forum tonight and for your desire to serve the residents of Floyd County. Thank you, audience members, for coming tonight and becoming informed on the candidates. Now make sure that you take the opportunity to exercise your right of voting on Tuesday, November 6th. And also tonight, up here at this table, there's absentee ballots and voter registration forms if you would like to have one. And again, to everyone here, thank you very much for coming.